There we go. Alrighty. Hey guys. So this is an interesting one. 4 years ago, um, I don't know how to describe it. So I'm here with Michelle Moniz. Am I pronouncing that accurately?
I go by Minez, but that's okay.
Okay, there we go. 4 years ago, her husband found me in the London Underground in the subway, and how do I say it? He confronted me and accused me of like taking her on a date or something. And I never even met him before. I never met you before. So this was 4 years ago. And I still have no idea to this day how he found me in the middle of a crowded subway system in the tunnel at the interchange at Waterloo Station in central London. So that always was on my mind, but um that's a strange one. So feel free to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your story.
Yeah, well, thank you for that brief introduction. So yeah, my name is Michelle. I'm a Canadian female. However, I 4 years ago I was married to a British man. I was living in a very nice and exciting part of London up on the Jubilee line in Abbey Road. So I had married my husband, who is now my ex. I had married my husband in 2018 in Canada. He was a British and Canadian national. So he was not living in Canada at the time, but we were married in Canada in August 2018. He then proceeded to go back to the UK after the ceremony, and we started the process of emigrating me to the UK on a spousal visa. So the process takes a little bit of time, but it's actually much quicker than the Canadian process. So by December of 2018, I had obtained my sponsorship to be sponsored by my husband, and I left my job, my apartment, my family to embark on a new life with my husband in London. Shortly afterwards, and even before me leaving, but we can go back to that. But shortly after me getting to London, um, the toxicity of the relationship escalated extremely quickly. I think I got to our apartment on December 12th, 2018, and by the end of February, I had removed myself from the apartment. The relationship was exhausting. It was 48 hours of fighting at a time. I had just started a new job, and I wasn't sleeping because he just wanted to go day and night, just cyclical conversations and accusations and everything else. So at the end of February, I said, you know what, like I committed to this marriage, I committed to moving here, but living and cohabitating in the same space is not, it's not, safe or healthy for either one of us. I'm going to rent an apartment, and I think it's best that we seek therapy and work through our problems, but at a distance. So I proceeded to do that, but that then led him to you. Um, Over the course of March 2019, we were separated, obviously, living in different places. And he was a very savvy person, I guess. Like, I don't even know how you and I are friends on Facebook. Like, as you said, like,
I can
we've
tell you
never
what I
met.
remember. So I remember there was a Facebook group, Canadians in London,
Canadians
and
in
I
London.
I remember posting, "Hey guys, want to get together for a barbecue." Keep in mind there were like 5,000 people in the group,
Okay.
so
Okay.
everyone's making a post every single day. It's a very busy
Sure.
group. At least 5,000 people in there that I remember.
Right.
And people were commenting. I don't even remember you commenting. I just made like a Facebook event and like the whole group was invited and that's it.
Right.
There's no other connection. So that to me is
That
the closest thing I
it
got to an explanation. But aside from that,
exactly.
yeah, that's still pretty far going.
So I guess he had realized that we had made contact in terms of friends through this group, but obviously no contact between the two of us. He had then proceeded to go through all of your posts, your personal photographs,
Mm.
and in the midst of your portfolio, he had found a picture of a girl, a very, very dark photo. Looks like a girl sitting on a curb, maybe in Camden. I don't know. She had ripped jeans and shoulder length hair, but her hands are covering her face and she's like kind of crouched down. So this is March, and my husband sends me this picture and he says, I can't believe it. You know, we're going through therapy and you're out there on dates. You're a fucking slut. You don't deserve me. You don't deserve my family. How fucking could you? Like, this is over. I'm writing to the home office. You're going to be deported. Blah, 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 blah. Just kept going. I get this message. I'm at work and I'm thinking, okay, like, I think I have those genes. um, could I have been maybe sitting somewhere and someone may have snapped a picture of me? Possibly, like, I don't know. So then I reached out to you and I'm like, hey, where did you get this picture of me? And a couple exchanges go back and forth, but long and short of it is your response was, are you Korean? I am not. I'm not Portuguese. And I'm like, no. In fact, I'm not Korean. And you're like, well, that's my friend in the picture is Korean. Like, unless you're Korean and you're my friend, like this isn't you.
Mm.
So
Are you
I
okay with
obviously proceeded then.
are you okay with me putting those specific
Yeah,
screenshots on top of this just so people can see?
yes.
Yeah,
Oh, it's
so
the picture.
yeah, that's funny. Like ripped jeans. Who doesn't have ripped jeans? I'm wearing ripped jeans right now
I'm
because I
currently
farted
wearing
so
ripped
hard.
jeans.
I literally have a rip on my right ass cheek. It's not the design. That's how I accidentally ripped my jeans. Also between my legs. I'm just growing too
Okay.
much. I ate too much over the pandemic. But like the only clues you could see this on the screen. It's such an obscure photo. And she's the woman in the photo is not you, obviously. To me, it was the most obvious because I'm the person that knows. It was the Korean
Right.
woman, and the hair was darker than yours. I didn't even know who you were, so I actually thought you were a blonde woman because I just briefly looked at your photos,
I probably was. At that
or
time, I
you
probably
maybe you
was
were at the
blonde.
time, yeah. But to get those messages and those threats while you were working as well, like in itself, those messages are quite a heavy load. But while you're working on top of that, it can be like, oh, that just really ruins everything.
And like, I mean, so like the pattern of cyber attacks from him prior to this, and I will get to that, were so robust that this accusation will seem minor. Um, so, I mean, obviously, it wasn't me. I informed him, hi, husband, this picture is not me. In fact, I am committed to pursuing our therapy. And I think I even said to you, please, if my husband reaches out, like, let him know it wasn't me in the picture. So, my question to you is, like, this all shook down in like March, April 2018. Like, when did he find you on the subway? How close to that was it?
I can't
Do you
even
remember?
remember. I I unless I wrote it down somewhere in like a message to
Yeah.
someone, there's no way of me like finding the exact date. But I can't say it was like too far apart. But like the
Okay.
fact that he found me so easy, like I was
Like
there.
he must have scoured through every single picture of you that you've ever taken because like even I wouldn't even know what you looked like, number one. Number
Hmm.
two, like I confirmed for him that it wasn't me. What gives him who in their right mind would come up to a known stranger and accuse you when you know it's not me in the picture? But like on top of that, how does he know you're not a fucking psycho? Like, how does he know you're not going to be like, hey man, like I don't know you, I don't know your wife,
Hmm.
but like I could kick your ass right now for even coming up to me. I don't know. Like, I don't know on what grounds he would have even thought that that was a good idea.
Yeah, in fairness, there were no fights or anything. In
Right.
fairness, he didn't punch me in the face. I didn't respond in an aggressive way. He did say some bad things about you that I remember loosely, but I can't remember exactly how it went. But it was just weird. The overarching thing
Yeah.
for me is like, where the fuck did you just come from? Because there were a
Yeah.
hundred people going left, right,
Silly.
forward, back, everywhere. How he picked me out while I was on my way to work in a very busy tunnel, one of the busiest tunnels in the whole city. Is like,
Oh yeah,
did he
there's
follow me
24.
there, or is it like he has some kind of automated laser vision that just picks up on their faces automatically? So I have no idea. I have been followed home by men before, weirdly, but I still have no idea to this day if that's a huge coincidence or like some spy shit.
I mean,
But it is a huge red flag, right? Can't say.
I mean, I got a couple red flags. I think for me, the red flags with this relationship started with the toothpaste.
With the what?
And the toothpaste, the Crest, the Colgate. Um, so when we met, okay, so we'll go back to the beginning, I guess.
Yeah, I was
When
gonna
we met,
ask, what did you see any red flags in the beginning, or were there some red flags you only realized in hindsight? So you're
yeah,
saying you
no,
picked up on a few initially?
yeah, in the beginning. So I actually met this individual, I think it was 2016. I was working in Toronto, so was he. So he had just because he had Canadian dual citizenship, he had transferred his job from London into Toronto. So he was working in Toronto. We met on a shared public transit system that took us like both from the subway to our places of work. So we met on the subway. You met him on the subway. There's a
Oh, what a
coincidence there.
coincidence.
Um, we started dating. And like that was cool. And then I think, I don't know, like very shortly after we started dating, I went to his house, his apartment, and under his sink in his bathroom was a grocery bag, like a Fortino's grocery Sobeys grocery bag filled with empty toothpaste tubes. There must have been at
Okay.
least 30. And
I,
I don't know what you like.
I
I thought
I
it was
don't
just
know why that would even happen, but that in itself is very weird. So
kind of
yeah,
bizarre.
that's a very apparent red flag. That's just
And I
weird.
think like I was like cleaning up like a couple weeks later, and like so I obviously told my friends, like, what's up with this? Like, this is kind of strange. And they're like, no, like, this is bizarre. Like, you got to get to the bottom of this. Like, why is he hoarding toothpaste? This is so weird. Um, so yeah, so I don't know. Like, I went to go remove them one day, and I'm like, hey, like, I just found these like random toothpaste tubes. Like, you mustn't know they're under here, but like, I'm just getting rid of them for you. And he fucking blew up. Like, don't touch my things, leave them, like doesn't matter that they're there, just leave them, like no questions asked. Like I never, honestly, in the 2.5 years that we dated and were married, I never saw him throw out a bag of toothpastes. They just kept accumulating. And I never got to the bottom of why he decided to keep them, but I assume it is a function of the OCD control plethora of personality traits. I don't know. But yeah, I would say the first red flag would have been the toothpaste. Yeah.
Damn.
Um,
Okay. That's quite a random
sorry.
one, but yeah, this guy's a mystery. Were there any other red flags at the start, or some that you found on the way, or even that you realize
I
now?
no, like in the beginning, he was very charismatic and smart, and had a great vocabulary, and he had great banter, and we got along really well. And he was always, really, a lot of flattery. And, he used the term, he was punching above his weight. And, you're so beautiful. And he, was very generous in terms of, gifts. And for my 30th birthday, he bought me a pair of Louboutins, which cost more than my apartment at the time. He made us beautiful dinner reservations. He would, I would take the subway up to his house, and instead of me leaving the subway and walking to his apartment, which he lived in a very safe neighborhood, he would meet me at the subway to walk to his house. And I don't know, like, I think I just got caught up in this elevation. He really took care of me. And I could see myself in the future, like in the traditional 1950s perversion of perfection, just being taken care of coming home, and your man comes home and you bring him a martini, and very cutesy type. I could see that. I could feel from what he gave me, that's where I thought that this could go. But we dated for a couple months. I think we dated from June until October, I want to say, of 2016. And I didn't see anything super weird then, minus the toothpaste. But I decided to break up with him because I just didn't have the spark feeling after that point in time. I knew I wanted to be married at some point in time, and I just couldn't see myself marrying him. So I had a conversation with him, and I said, listen, I'm not really too sure where this is going. Not really too sure what was happening, but I decided to go out with my girlfriends for the night because it was Halloween and that's what you do. So I dressed up as a mouse. I had, the ears, the big hands, Minnie Mouse hands, and I had my face painted. So I went to this, dive bar in Toronto, and I came home, and my nose, the paint on my nose was smudged. And I came home, and the accusations were wild. Why is your face all messed up? You were obviously making out with dudes, plural, at the bar because your nose, your black nose, is smudged. How could you do this to me? You're such a slut, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I blew my nose. It's just it's just ink, or I think it was probably mascara or something on my nose. I had been out for 5 hours. Of course my makeup is gonna be smudged. That doesn't mean I was automatically making it with guys. This is insane. So that fight proceeded to we were sleeping in the same bed. So I was like, listen, you couldn't reason with him. You couldn't tell him that wasn't the case, because once he had an idea in his mind, that's what happened. So, at that point in time, he just wants to continue fighting. I got work in the morning. So I get out of my own bed in my own apartment, go sleep on my own floor in my living room, and he's down on the floor, and he's in my face, and he's screaming insults at me. I think he spit on the floor beside me. And then I got in my car. I was like, fuck this. I can't handle this. I'm not even retaliating, because again, you couldn't. So I get in my car, and I go park at the No Frills to sleep there. And he just followed me, and wouldn't take no for an answer, wouldn't go home. And I don't know, I ended up I think he ended up going back to the house or something. I went to my girlfriend's, to be honest, not even too sure how it ended up. But in the morning I said to him, I'm like, listen, this is done. Last night can't happen again. I'm gonna go to my mom's house for the next week. She lives in Burlington. I'm gonna go to my mom's house for the next week. You figure your shit out here and get the fuck out. But by Saturday, I'm gonna return, and you better not be here. Essentially that's what happened. And he decided that instead of getting another apartment in Toronto, I mean, he had a great job here, so there was no reason for him to leave. He didn't need to leave. He had status. So instead of, getting another apartment or going to a hotel, he booked, really erratically, booked a container, booked his flight back to the UK, and he was gone from Toronto to the UK in 5 days. So that's where the story kind of breaks up, and then we don't see each other for about a year. And then something happened, social media, DMs, whatever. Time had passed. I had forgotten things. We started talking again. And then we started seeing each other at this point in time. Now I was living in France. I had gotten a tourist visa to work there. I'd gone there to work as a tour guide. in Paris. It was the best job I've ever had. Best year I ever spent there. So he came to visit me, and he just seemed like a different person. You know, he was confident. He had gotten a job back in London. He was established, and it was the whole thing all over again. It was charming and professional, and, you know, making a lot of money. That didn't really matter, but it meant for him, he was a lot more confident. He didn't seem as insecure. So we started dating again at distance. And then in February 2018, we get engaged. So we're like, hey, you know what? Like, doing this long distance isn't going to work. Like, we're old enough. We have to commit to this. We'll get engaged. We'll proceed with the relationship, and I will move to the UK.
Mhm.
So over the course of February through June, we're planning a wedding. The wedding's going to happen in August. And then something happens in July. And like, I'm not internet savvy. Like, even calling into this Zoom call, like I called in 5 minutes, like a couple minutes early, just like make sure the connection works. But like, I don't post on Instagram. I don't post on Instagram. I'm not a big Facebook user. Like, I don't have Twitter. I don't really even know how things work, to be honest. So something happened in July, and I was at work, and I don't even remember the instance, but it made me ask myself, is there a way that my husband can be reading my Instagram messages to my friends while they're happening? And I asked my girlfriends at work, and they're like, I don't think so. Like, I don't think that's possible. So I kind of just rebuffed the conversation that had happened with him as a coincidence. So we get married in August. We get married. He's here for the wedding, and he goes back. He comes back. And then we start my paperwork applications in October, and in November, I'm on lunch at my office, and I go for a drive with my girlfriend to the mall to get lunch. And on the way back from lunch, I'm stopped at a stoplight, and in the car beside me, there is a guy stopped at a stoplight as well. And so I say to my girlfriend, I'm like, yo, doesn't that guy in the car look like this guy I dated named Dan, who was also British? And she looks over and she's like, oh my God, that totally looks like Dan. And I'm like, weird, like he doesn't live here anymore. I wonder what he's doing here. So then I messaged Dan, and I was like, hey, like, are you in Toronto? What are you doing here? And if you are, like, hey, like, nice to see you or whatever. And so Dan and I proceed to have like a very, you know, benign conversation back and forth. No, he's not in Toronto. It was someone else. You know, he's living in the UK, blah, 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 blah. Not a big deal. Later on that evening, and this happens on Instagram, Dan and I's conversation. Later on that evening, my husband calls me, and he, you know, cavalierly says, you know, is it possible, like, you know, blah, 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 you know, something to the effect of, yeah, but it's not like you saw one of your exes today. And I'm like, and he was the type of person who you couldn't tell the truth to, because he would not believe you, and he would inflate, and
He would react badly. Yeah.
Right. So I didn't want to say, yes, I think I saw my ex, but I also didn't want to lie. And say, no, like I didn't see anyone. So I think I ended up saying, like, I changed the subject to some effect, but I did not confirm that I had seen Dan that day or not seen Dan that day. But that just got me thinking. I'm like, okay, this is the second time this has happened in a couple months. Like, this seems peculiar to me that this coincidence happened, that we're having this real-time conversation. He seems to know more about it than he should. So I was at work the next day, and I said to my girlfriend, I'm like, okay, like I have reason to believe that my husband is currently reading my Instagram messages in real time of us having our conversations. How do we confront this, but not ask him outright, because then he's just going to deny it? So I said, I call her on the phone, talking to her on the phone. We're not texting this. And I call her, and I'm like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to message you on Instagram, and I'm going to tell you that I think I'm pregnant. Because if I had to prove that I wasn't pregnant, I could very much take a test because I literally had just finished my period. And there was no way I was pregnant. So sure enough, I send her a message and I'm like, hey, Alyssa, crazy thing. I think I might be pregnant. And she writes back, oh my God, this is crazy. What is your husband going to say about this? And I kid you not. And this was like 4 o'clock our time, Canada time. So it would have been like 9 o'clock his time. I kid you not. He calls me and he's like flipping out. And he's, I'm just in the middle of packing up our stuff and moving into the new apartment. And, I've got a lot of things on my mind, but like, I just got to ask you a question. Did you get your period today? And as soon as he said that, I obviously knew that he had overread this conversation in real time.
Oh my God, is he
And
on
I'm
this
like,
video with us right now? This is like a recurring theme. This is actually quite fucking scary.
I'm sorry, what?
This is quite scary. Like,
right.
he
It's terrifying.
knows this stuff all the time.
Right.
That
right.
is
So
something's happening.
Right. Like something's happening. Like, and so I write back and I'm like, no, of course I'm like, no, I didn't get my period. Like, I'm not due for my period for another 3 weeks. Why do you ask? And he just kept going. You've been acting really weird lately. You were all off on the phone this morning. I just have to know, like, did you get your period? Like, you can tell me if you got your period. And I'm like, I just told you, like, I didn't get my period. I'm fine. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. And at the same time, I'm continuing this conversation with Alyssa. Like, oh my God, like, what am I going to do? Am I going to keep this baby? Blah, 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 blah. All because I need him. I need him to tell me that he knows, right? Like, I need him to confess. So this goes on for about a week. We're halfway through November at this time. And so finally, one night we're on the phone, he and I say to him, I'm like, hey, and he's still like obviously like losing his mind because the conversations just continue to escalate with me and my girlfriend, and he has to confront me at some point in time about this. So he says he's just acting me weird, and then I said to him, listen, is there something that is there something you want to tell me that you've done, and I'd be mad about if I knew that you did this? And he says no, but then I ask the same question for 45 minutes. And finally he says, is this about the Instagram messages? And I'm like, what? I'm like, please elaborate on what that means. And he's like, I've been reading your Instagram messages. Yeah. And I'm like, and it turned out that he had, at some point in time, he'd said that he had just been reading for the past 3 weeks. But that's completely untrue. And also my Instagram and my Facebook was the same password. So it turned out that he had been reading, he at least been reading my Instagram since July of that year. We're now in November. But again, like, I haven't deleted any history. So he's been able to read in real time or past conversations from Instagram and Facebook for as long as I've had Instagram and Facebook. Which is like 10 years. So he knows every conversation with every guy I've ever fucked, every family member I ever had a conversation with, like everything. And I'm the type of person who, like, I don't even share my resume. Like, I'm not private in that I don't like tell people my stories, but like I'm very kind of like selective about like what I tell people. So it just felt like such a huge invasion of privacy. And I just don't know why he would do, like, I don't know why, if he was reading these things because he didn't trust me, why would you marry someone you didn't trust?
Do you feel like this guy has had trust issues for his entire life? So maybe in a previous relationship, or maybe his parents or some family, whatever it may be, completely destroyed his trust or whatever
He
that may be. Even we might not know, but that could be the case. But to go to such extremes like that
like it
is,
was insane. Like, he had bought me a pair of Robin, like Robin the singer, Robin tickets to see her concert.
hmm,
And I was like, oh my God, like, how did you know? Like, I fucking love Robin. And it was because me and my girlfriend Alyssa were having a conversation about her new album drop. Like, that's how he knew I loved Robin. So
man, this
I
guy's
find this
like the
out.
Google Assistant or something. Holy shit.
Like he was just it was the next level. I don't even know if that's stalking. I think it's cyber monitoring. But like
Yeah.
even like he's 5 hours
Surveillance.
ahead, right? Like he's in the middle of the night sleeping when I'm having conversations with my friends at night. And that didn't even go amiss. Like he must have been staying up 24 hours a day, just reading my conversations. Like again, like I don't know why you would marry someone if this is how control like how much you needed to control things or you didn't trust the person. Um, so yeah, so I obviously found this out in November. I changed all my passwords to everything. I now didn't trust him at all. Like I
Mhm.
think jealousy works in the opposite way you want it to. Like don't
Mhm.
like, it just didn't make any sense to do this to someone. Um, so obviously I changed everything, and because I changed everything, I think that lack of control made him spiral further. So very shortly after this, my visa comes through. Like I said, December 11th, December 12th, within a month of this whole thing going down. I've left my job, I left my apartment, my family knows I'm going. So I made the commitment. I'm like, like maybe he doesn't trust our situation because of the distance. Maybe when we're living together as a married couple, he won't feel the need to have to monitor and surveil my conversations and my every move. Maybe it will get better. And also, I've committed to this individual. So I'm going to go to the UK. I'm going to see this out. Um, and like I said, as soon as I got to the UK, without having access to any of my passwords, without knowing what I was doing and who I was talking to all day long, the cycle of abuse just escalated like 200% from there.
I just
So
want to say that I can see that you're a very good communicator. So for example, where you said you were asking him questions after the week of doing this whole pregnancy thing, where you're saying did you do this, that kind of thing. Very good communication, whereas this guy uses jealousy, surveillance, harassment to the extreme, controlling. And surely to control someone, it's for the sake of stability. But in fact, the
yeah,
opposite is happening. So he's trying to control you to such an extent that it's actually
right.
making everything so unstable. And he's the one that's causing the instability. So it just makes no logical sense. Um, could be trauma. I can't really defend a person like that, of course. But that is really extreme. Do you think maybe the fact that he had a high paying job, or so he claims, maybe gave him access to have a lot of spare time, and that's kind of how he dedicates so much time. It might even not take that much time, like an hour a day. I don't know how it works, but
A prolific
it,
man.
surely it doesn't take that long to, even when you said like 10 years of history spread out over a few months, it's
Yeah.
quite easy to find some time to do, plenty of time to do that. So that's actually, yeah, that's just
Yeah.
like insane.
I mean, it is true. I have a small circle of friends. So reading my daily conversations probably wouldn't have taken that long. You're absolutely right. Um, I think his personality was very domineering. He was a he was a project manager, but I mean, so am I. So I don't know. We have almost the exact same job, so it's kind of funny. And some days are,
Or
less
maybe he
busy than
read that in
others.
your messages and just said he was the same thing.
I mean, I don't know. I think I think I don't know how much time he would have had to have done this, but obviously he felt so insecure about being with me that he felt that he couldn't trust me. He was just jealous. Like I couldn't like we would walk down the street and he would get mad. Like, a guy would check me out and his reaction was, I've heard it a couple times, like, I fucking hate it when guys look at you like that. And like I don't I don't dress anyway. Like I don't wear nail polish. Like I'm not like a blingy girl. Like I don't stand out.
Hmm.
And I kind of just like I would say to him like what are you talking about? Like why do you hate when guys look at me? Like wouldn't you kind of want like a trophy? Like doesn't that isn't a trophy wife like a thing? And his reaction like repeatedly would be like, no, like I hate that when they're looking at you like that. Like you need to dress in a different way. And it's like
Well,
like
makes no difference because women are so sexualized regardless. Like, I know some guys who really dive deep into the sociological dating stuff. Um,
right.
for example, just the fact that it ripped the jeans, for example, and someone will look at you. That's just how men are, and it's gonna happen,
Yeah,
obviously. But it's like he expresses it that it's your fault. He's
exactly.
frustrated. And on top of that, did I show you a few days ago a video where an Instagram model was saying she had a boyfriend the same height? And when she would
Yeah.
wear heels, her boyfriend would get insecure. Oh, you're wearing those heels? And
Yeah.
he's like putting it on her, like
Yes.
his insecurities that he's going to be shorter because she's wearing heels. It doesn't matter.
One of my girlfriends who's like a staunch feminist, at this point in time, like I was really close to her. She was living in France. I was in the UK. Like we had a lot of conversations and she was super supportive. And she said to me one day, Michelle, you don't want to be with anyone who's going to dull your sparkle. And it sounds like a cheesy thing to say, but it meant so much because it's true. Like I don't want to be with anyone who would make me feel ashamed for just
Mhm.
being me. Like, you want to be with someone who bigs you up and is like, yeah, check out my girl. Like,
Someone
and
who
I was with her.
amplifies you, someone who
Yes,
compliments you, and
gives you a
someone who
platform.
inspires you. For example, my wife, she has brain cancer. Um, and over the years, we've been married for what year is it? 4 years now. And during the pandemic, I had the feeling maybe she's a bit lazy. But in reality, what was happening is that there was a tumor inside her head. So I never like told her she was lazy or anything, but I got that impression and I picked up on symptoms over time. Her speech was getting worse. A year before she had her real shock symptoms, which was a stroke in December 2022. She has had brain surgery right after Christmas, came back home in January, has gone through 6.5 weeks of radiotherapy, and now she's going through 12 months of chemotherapy. She's on month number 3 right now, and today she's
Oh
taking
my God.
chemo. So that's like 5 pills per month. That's how her particular one works. So in these last 7 months, really, I have seen her suddenly shine despite this very dreadful illness that she has. She has gone to inspire me by going taking the keto diet all by herself. I never like pushed that onto her. I knew about it, but I didn't know all these things that uh, are useful for cancer itself. But she
Mm-hmm.
really got into that. She has stuck with it.
Mm-hmm.
She she introduced me to cheesecake, and she's a huge cheesecake fan. But now she
Okay.
hasn't had cheesecake in so long. She's strict with herself because she knows
Right.
her health is important. So
Right.
she not only did something, but she did something. She
Yeah.
stuck to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for me, she has, despite a huge negative thing, a lot of
Hmm.
people um would fall to something like this, but
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
that has been a huge comeback for her. Suddenly,
Yeah.
her English is not her first language. Her first language is Spanish. I just thought she was getting rusty, but it turns out that was one of the symptoms of the frontal lobe on the left side of the brain, as
Right.
well as mobility and what was the other one? Memory. So I also picked up on
Okay.
memory too. So
Right.
that one I couldn't explain. Um, but there you go.
Right.
As soon as she was able to speak again after her brain surgery, she
Oh
came
my
to
God.
life. It was like, I'm not sure if I ever really knew my wife because maybe she had this tumor the whole time and it was slowly taken over, or maybe it appeared at some point since we met, or could have been there for many years. You never know. But as soon as
Right.
she woke up and was able to speak again after a few days, it's funny how fast you can recover from brain
That's
surgery.
insane.
It took me
Yeah.
ages to recover from fucking coughing, but brain surgery, it took her 2 days, and she sprung to life. She was like, "Let's have a baby," all this stuff. I said, "Okay, slow down, too fast."
Calm down.
Luckily, I
Yeah.
said no because that can't happen with
Right.
chemotherapy and so on.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
that's just to emphasize how it is. But yeah,
Yeah.
a partner should be someone who's supportive, but also
Yeah.
someone who can communicate very well. Like as you were saying before, you were kind of you faced two options. You could either tell him you saw your ex-boyfriend coincidentally that day, and you know he's gonna react badly because that's what he does. So you're
Lose it.
discouraged. You're discouraged
Yeah.
from giving him that
Yeah.
answer, or you lie to him
Right.
and you save yourself that drama.
Yeah.
And that's an easy
Right.
option to, like, a lot of people are liars. A lot of people would take the easier option in whatever situation. But in a situation like that, that's such a reasonable
Yeah.
choice. Like the opposite is, okay, I'm going to have a very hard time for the next week or two, or however long it may
Exactly.
be. It's going to be very distressing. It's going to be very
Yes.
emotionally damaging. It's going to be so unnecessary.
Unnecessary.
So
Unnecessary.
I definitely see
Take
that.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just communication is such a key thing there.
Yeah, no, you couldn't communicate with him. Because even when you told him, like even if I had said, yes, I saw Dan, he would have been like, well, why did you talk to him? What were you doing? He would just too many accusations. He wouldn't believe you, first of all. And then it would just, yeah, spiral out of control. The and the angrier you, the less. So when my fighting style communication is, if someone wants to come at me in a relationship and get in your face about something, I regress. Like I'm not gonna match your anger and your energy. I'm just gonna shut down. um so I demonstrated that a couple times at the apartment in the UK. And at one point in time, I was sitting there just casually eating a salad. Like I chopped up my salad, I made my dinner, through him just, in my ear, abusing me for whatever it was. I don't even remember. I sat down, I started eating my salad, and then he's stomping up and down the hallway in our apartment. He's 6'1" and I'm 5 foot. I'm 105 pounds and he's probably 180. And he's walking up and down this, he's stomping up and down the hallway. He's like, "You will respect me. You will respect me." He's flipping the fuck out because I'm not listening. I've disengaged from the conversation. Like I'm shut down because he's just, continued to escalate. And so he comes back in the kitchen, he picks up my salad and throws it across the room. And again, in my de-escalated casual way, like I'm like, okay, like I walked back to the fridge, I took out more lettuce, I took out more cucumber, like I just continued to prepare it again because I didn't feed into it. I didn't buy into I didn't bow down. And I think that that's really, the more I've read after when we broke up, the more I realized it was probably very very stereotype narcissistic abuse cycles.
Do you have any books to recommend for anyone? If you got that from a few books or something, do you have any to recommend?
No, just online
Okay.
therapists and stuff. My friend sent me a lot of shit back then. She was like, "This is what's happening. This is classic. This is textbook. Like this is what they do. They idealize you. They big you up. Then they isolate you. They devalue you. They make you feel guilty. They make you feel shameful. And then it's the abuse. And then it's the apologies. The I love you so much, and this is why I got so mad. You're so beautiful, and this is why I got so mad. And then just the gaslighting, the making you feel crazy for the purpose of them wanting you to feel crazy so that they can they keep the control. There was one time where we got in a fight, and this is probably February. We got in a fight, and like I said, I'm pretty plain. I don't actually wear a lot of jewelry. So even my wedding ring that I had on, or it was my engagement ring. My engagement ring, I didn't like to wear it when I typed at work. It would actually bother my hands because it kind of rolled around. So this particular morning, we got in a fight. I left my ring on my nightside table deliberately because I'm pissed at you. I'm not fucking wearing my ring to work today. I'm just angry. And sure enough, I got back home and the ring is gone. The ring is missing. And I deliberately left it there. So I know I didn't move it. So I said, I'm like, "Did you move my ring?" And he's like, "No, I didn't move it." And then, I don't know, a couple days after that, he sends me a picture, and my ring is wrapped up in a scarf that his sister gave me for Christmas that I've never worn before. And it's 3 drawers below where I had it. And he's like, "Look, I found your ring. Come back," because I moved out by this time. "Come back. It's been here all along, blah, 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 blah." I'm like, "No, I've never even fucking worn that scarf. You stole my ring. Why? I don't know. Now you're you're gaslighting me, making me feel like I'm crazy. I didn't know where I put it. It was so insane." And then it turned out that his family took my ring after that back to Coventry, where they're from, and were holding it hostage so that I'd pay my rent.
What?
But the kicker is rent's due on the 1st of the month, right? I paid February's month rent. This was February 23rd that they confessed to me that they've stolen it, and the ring's in Coventry for safekeeping because I'm not going to pay my rent. And I'm like, "Bitch, rent was due 3 weeks ago. I gave you rent money. I gave you rent money the month before that, and 4 months before that, and rent's not due until March 1. I still got 10 days. Who steals someone's engagement ring in anticipation? The whole family."
The whole family?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So I thought his family was super normal and super, sweet and kind until this particular episode. But you raised a good point earlier when you said maybe he was traumatized as a child, or maybe there's, he has trust issues from his family. I wouldn't have ever seen that. I wouldn't have ever thought that. But in this particular instance, in this this encounter about this ring, his mom, I just saw such a different side of his father, such an aggressive, toxic, demanding, controlling personality that I hadn't seen from him before, and such a deflation of his mom's, self. And I was like, okay, this makes sense because the son is exactly acting like his father, and the son's getting wildly upset because I'm not acting like his mom. Because I am independent, because I've never been abused before in my life, because I know my worth, because I know I'm not a fucking crazy person. Like these things were happening to me, and I'm like, a less, if you had a less stable person, a more dependent person, more of a wallflower or someone that you could control, these tactics would have really changed me and impacted me, but not water off a duck's back. I think if I was a less strong person, this story would have ended a different way, and I probably would still be in the UK, basically living in fear, still sleeping with my passport under my pillow so that he wouldn't take it from me in the middle of the night.
Oh God, damn. Before we get to that part, in those moments, did you ever look at his mother and father and kind of see a reflection that could be you two?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it could have been us if I was probably born 50 years ago in a different society. His parents are from a different generation, right? Where, the man went out and made the money. She was a stay-at-home mom. She was very dependent on him for their whole duration of their lives. I wasn't in that, and I grew up in a different time where that's not, it's just as it's common, but it's just as common not to be that way, to be independent, to have your own bank account, to, be well educated, to stand on your own 2 feet. That's
To have
my
your own
generation.
words to say.
Yes. So it could have been me 50 years ago. It also could have been me in today's day if I wasn't the independent person that I am. But I think that there's a lot of girls out there, who are insecure themselves, who don't know their value, who think that that type of behavior is okay and they deserve that type of abuse. But I guess I don't want to say I knew better because that sounds, doesn't sound nice. But I knew that that's not what I wanted for myself. That's for sure.
You told me before, right? You ended up getting deported. Is that
Yes.
right? So he tried to get you deported.
Well, he did get me deported. So
and he
the
succeeded.
situation, well, 200%. The situation in the UK is as long if you're on a spousal visa, if the relationship breaks down, the sponsor can write to the Home Office and inform them that the relationship has then status in the UK is null and void, and I have 60 days to leave the country. That's how it works.
60 days is such a short amount of time for such. Yeah.
So at this point in time, I had a great job. I could have stayed I was independently, could independently support myself. I didn't need him. And he did it very quick. So it was at the end of February that I moved out. You and I have the crossover in March while I'm going to therapy with him. And by April 15th, I was boarding a flight to Budapest. I was at my work going to what's the Gatwick Airport. I was going to Gatwick Airport after work to go to Budapest by myself for like a spa holiday, 2 days. And he, I guess, had access to my Google Calendar again through his stalking ways. So he knew I was going on a weekend. He probably figured I was going with someone, but I was not. And he called me and he informed me that he had submitted the paperwork to have me deported. And if I decided to get on that plane, I wouldn't probably be let back into the country upon my return. So I did not go to Budapest. I stayed, called my lawyer, and I stayed. But yeah, my work wouldn't sponsor me, which I was surprised by, given that I worked for a very equal opportunity um CPG company, which was like a female-led company. I did make I didn't want to. I'd only been there for 3 months, which is probably the reason why they didn't sponsor me. But I also didn't want to pull the victim card and say, I'm an abused woman, you need to sponsor me. But I was. Um, I was being abused. I was being deported. I was being threatened. And it would have been really great that if they did sponsor me to maintain my current job, but they did not. So I had to leave, and I left the UK on June 21st, I believe it was my 60-day deportation date. Otherwise, I basically would probably never be allowed back in the UK ever again if I didn't comply to the Home Office rules and regulations.
Yeah, they are super strict. I understand. It's pretty crazy.
In in Canada, it's super different. So I have since this whole situation actually gone on to remarry uh, Dan, the guy from the story earlier, who was in the car, coincidentally. So Dan moved to Canada to be with me. We got married. And the law here in Canada is I'm legally responsible for him for 10 years. So even if tomorrow I didn't want to be with him anymore and I wrote to our Home Office and said, we've broken up, they would say, too bad. He doesn't have a job. He doesn't need a job for 10 years and you have to pay for him.
Yeah.
So different countries have different rules. So.
More generous country. There you go. Damn, that's pretty great. Well, looking at all of this, that is quite a lot of I would say interesting, but terrible stuff, of course. How did all of this affect you? Maybe we could split this up into various aspects like work, friends, family. So you had some supportive friends, of course, from what I gathered from the story so far, but also on your mind, your work, your friends, your family. That job you had for 3 months didn't support you as much as they could have. Um, but how are the other things?
So that's a really good question, actually. And when you start a new job, or when I started a new job, you don't know anyone. And I didn't want to be that girl with this drama going on, right? Because they don't know me. I could be the crazy one for all they know. So I didn't really share what was going on at home with anyone at work because I didn't want to be seen as that weak part of the puzzle. So it wasn't until I got my deportation letter that I had to come to them and say, hey, listen, this has been what's going on. Can you sponsor me to stay on? My friend that I had in Paris, she was on the same time zone, so that was easier to communicate with her. Again, in real time, things were happening to me, and I could call her, and we'd be on the same time zone. And also, she's a very strong, independent feminist who had my back, who was super supportive. She came up from Paris to help me move out of the apartment. She was great. I didn't want to share too much of what was going on with my family in Canada because I didn't want them to worry. My friends as well. I'm, a little girl in a big, 20 million person population city. My parents never travel. They never even leave the house. So, imagining me in such a big metropolis by myself on my own in a house that was basically terrorizing me and just such a toxic environment. I didn't really want to tell my mom these things. I didn't want to have her worry about me. I didn't want her to worry. It's not like she'd come and pick me up because she wouldn't get on a plane. But yeah, so I couldn't really talk to my friends. Couldn't talk to anybody in Canada. I talked to Asia in France. But that's how Dan, my husband now, and I connected, because this, like I said, this really breaks apart. And now I'm in my own apartment in March of 2019. And I just wanted to talk to someone who knew me before this whole thing happened. And so when I reached out to Dan, I'm like, hey, are you still living in the UK? Like, not can we get back together, but like, this is happening to me. Are you in the UK? Like, I need to, like, can we get a drink? Like, can we just talk? I just want to like be with someone who doesn't think that I'm the crazy person. So yeah, Dan was there for me. Obviously, he didn't live close by. He was in Coventry as well. Dan and my ex-husband lived in the exact same town, so it's obviously I have a postal code type. That's that, that is the extent of their similarities, however. Um, so yeah, Dan was really great. You know, he didn't want to get involved with me at all, like romantically. Obviously knowing what was going on, and neither did I. I was obviously going through a lot, but super supportive and really helpful. And you know, we went on a hiking trip together, and just it was nice to be with someone again who knew me in Canada before I was now this victim. And I hate that word, so take that out and use a different word if you can. But yeah, and then I got deported. So our friendship broke apart for a couple months. And then when I got back to Canada in September of 2019, Dan and I started talking again. He came to visit. COVID hit. I worked from home, from his home, for a couple months. And then again, at 35, I was like, this is, you know, shit or get off the pot. Like, get your ass here. I've got a house here. I've got a job here. Like, I'm settled now. If you're serious about this, then come here. Let's do this. And that was 2.5 years ago. So how did it affect me? You know, it was hard because I had to treat everybody kind of differently. I didn't want to be seen as that pariah at work. I had limited people I could talk to. But I guess in the end, like it worked out, because if I wasn't in the UK being terrorized and harassed, I probably wouldn't be in Sarnia. Currently putting a new deck railing on my back patio with my husband when he's working from home, and my 2-year-old beagle puppy who's amazing. So it turned out in the end for me, but yeah, it was a long stretch to get to this point.
Yeah, there we go. Well, at least you got your deck there. Any plans for a hot tub or something? That's always a classic.
Yeah, so again, from the UK, hot tubs, they don't really have them, right? Like, it's not a thing.
No,
But
it's
like everyone
weird.
here,
So where I am, it's like my neighbor has a hot tub, and it's the only hot tub I have seen in Europe,
ever.
I think. Like
Yeah,
just anywhere. It's like such a huge coincidence. They came in with a crane, and I Googled
yeah,
how much this guy paid for that particular one. It was like close to 15,000 pounds.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
he really pimped out the backyard there. Yeah. But
So yeah,
all these other ones just look terrible. Yeah,
well, and
that's the
Costco's
one
doing a whole
guy.
bunch of like inflatable ones. They're doing inflatable ones that are like $800. So like A, they're inflatable, and B, you can only fit 2 or 3 people in them. So we don't want that. But definitely when Dan got here, he actually got a job working for a pool company that put in like multi-million-dollar indoor, outdoor pools, cabanas, saunas. He was going to like the who's who of Toronto and Canada in their backyards, and like installing or dealing with the pump systems. So he saw like incredible backyards. He was at Drake's neighbor's house. He's been at Avril
Mm.
Lavigne's house. He's been at the guy who owns Maple Leaf Foods, like just multi-million-dollar people. So he's seen a lot of amazing hot tubs. So yes, of course, that's his next big purchase now that the deck is finished.
So this guy's stalking people's backyards instead. Much better
I
hobby.
mean, yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, he was obviously invited and paid to be there and fixing them. But he got a real flavor of what a great Canadian backyard looks like. So yeah, so now that's his dream.
Oh, nice. Well, perhaps
Mm.
a few other questions. Oh, yeah. So I was going to ask, have you been able to move on and heal since then? So, obviously you haven't addressed that, but in terms of healing, um, do you feel like you have fully moved on, fully back to your mind 100% of the way? How is
I think if anything, I think it's just really like being in such a crazy, tumultuous situation has made me so appreciate, like so clear of what I needed going forth. I needed to be in a relationship that where where trust was unwavering. And Dan and I watch 90 Day Fiance all the time. So like I see this, I see people's relationships that don't have trust or have an element of doubt. And it's just like, for me, it's just like, it's like so triggering. And I would never, ever, ever accept a relationship now that wasn't just like 100% trust. Like my phone is, I have multiple phones, one for work, one for personal. Like it's left everywhere. Like Dan and I have our passwords. Like there's nothing that we don't know. There's nothing that I would feel uncomfortable talking to him about. There's no hiding anything. And that just comes from a baseline. We trust each other. I know
Hmm.
I have conversations with guys at work. I most of my friends at work are guys. And it takes a level of trust in a relationship not to, when he walks in, I'm on a video call with one of my friends at work and we're just chatting. Like if that had happened with my past ex, like that would have been the end of my weekend. So it really made me evaluate what is important in a relationship, trust being one thing, jealousy being something that I would never, ever, ever accept again. Um, and then just also getting out of that relationship, I just wanted easy. Like I just wanted, when you tell someone something, they understand you. Communication is extremely important. And I don't want, when I say like, I love you, I don't want the response to be like, do you though? Because I don't feel like you do. And it's like, no, like I'm telling you that I love you. Like, I couldn't be more plain with my words. Like, trust what I'm saying to you. So yeah, I think just coming out of that, I realized I just reevaluated really like what I needed to get from my next from my life, what I wanted for my next romantic partnership, and that was trust and no jealousy and honesty and yeah, you just really reevaluate. Whereas I guess before meeting my ex, it was I think maybe I had different things in mind that were important. And I think maybe like living the status quo relationship, like I needed to be married by 30. I think that played a lot in my head. Like when I turned 30, he and I sort of reconnected our conversation. I was like, listen, like I'm gonna be too old. If I'm 35, I'll be unmarriable. And if I want to have kids, it has to be now. Like I have to get going. And what
Hmm.
he was providing me or what he was offering me seemed like a really good deal. And even if I didn't, even I loved him, but even if it wasn't everything, it should probably still be enough. I think that's what I told myself going um into that matrimonious relationship. But coming out, I think I've definitely realigned what was important, and that's being happy, being understood, taking the time you need, and being with someone who makes you shine and doesn't make you feel like shit just for existing.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Like it's such, and those are a lot of those things are such basic things. Like you would have no reason to bring it up in normal circumstances. It's just normal stuff.
Yeah.
Like you don't need to
Yeah.
remind someone they have to brush their teeth unless they're particularly unhygienic, for example. Maybe it's like you have been in a storm for such a long time, and then
Mm.
now you can see the stars.
Yeah.
The
Yeah, for
clarity is
sure.
back.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we would still love to like travel and like live in London. But like excitement is nice. But yeah, like day to day, it's just, like I think that I think when people like make these lists of like what they're looking for, do up their vision boards, like I think it's just like the basic elements of people are overlooking basic elements.
Mm.
And that's you don't want to you don't want to have a stressful relationship. I didn't want to have a stressful relationship. I didn't want to be stressed out and feel like I was walking on eggshells and
No,
just
nobody
just
wants that. Like in his mind, maybe he was thinking, had this like huge imprinting from his parents that I want my wife to be just like my mom, have this relationship that he grew up around, possibly, I don't know his childhood, but if he was there for 18 years or whatever, that's probably some form of explanation what he has in mind, a version of his own perfection that he witnessed
Mhm.
all his life, but he's trying to take that template and squish you in it. That
Yes,
is horrifying.
I 100% agree with that. I feel like he did love me, but I feel like for him he was very much trying to control trying to con- trying to make me be he was hoping that I was going to be something that I wasn't.
Mm.
And he was trying to push me into that. Um and I just think maybe he got the wrong idea from the beginning. Like maybe he thought from the beginning I was the person, the type of person who could be molded, who could be groomed, who could be kept down, who could be isolated. Like he would say things like, "Your family doesn't love you. They're never going to support you, but I'll always love you." And isolating you, just making you feel like isolating you so that you become dependent on him. And I remember, like, I think that again, like, I think that would have worked on someone who wasn't as headstrong or independent. And I remember looking at him as he's saying these things. I'm just like, who the fuck do you think you're talking to? Like, I know my family love me. Like, this isn't working on me. But I think he thought that eventually it would. And that's probably
Mm.
why he got so mad that he couldn't mold me into this bunt cake of a wife.
Yeah, so that kind of
But
leads me into my last question. Like, what warnings or advice would you give to the people watching? So one thing I learned actually, um, like from what you were saying about when he would pace up and down, throw the food across the room or into the other room, your approach was that you were calm at all times, you were doing your thing, you were just eating, you were not reacting. I think that's a very it's not every day that you hear or see, especially in movies, because movies have such an influence on drama and everything. But
mm,
when I see arguments, it's fire against fire. But the way you reacted was very much non-reaction. So that's one thing I really want to highlight in terms of how to deal with this. Obviously, it's not easy to deal with this, and perhaps the only real solution to deal with something like this is to leave, but it's never that
yeah,
easy. It's never that
yeah,
easy.
I think, and I'm like, I'm not a saint, and to be honest, I do have a fiery personality. There were fights that I did definitely react, and we would get into it, but um at this particular time in the relationship, like I was so exhausted from the fighting that I didn't even have the energy to go back. Like I was like, I couldn't react at that one time. There are fights where I will back down and I don't react at all. There were those fights. There were fights that I absolutely would react in, but um, I don't know. Like I feel like I don't even know if the non-reaction was the right reaction, because the less I reacted, the more he did. And that's when it got violent, when I wasn't responding, you know? It was when I was walking away that he physically tried to contain me. It was when I'm, weak on the floor, not weak on the floor, but like remove myself from the situation and like in a cocoon on the floor, like just leave me alone. I want to go to bed. Where he's down in my face, screaming at me, like, get up. Like, I don't think there's a right way to fight like that. I just think that if someone is not respecting your boundaries, if someone isn't communicating with you in a way that you can, communicate back with, that yeah, you just have to get out. You have to at least distance yourself. And that's what I tried to do by getting a separate apartment. Listen, like, I love you, I married you, I committed to this, but it's not safe for me to be in this apartment with you. You have physically tried to pick me up and remove me from the house at 2 in the morning. Physically, it is not safe for me to be here, but I committed to you. So I committed to the process. I will physically distance ourselves and we can work on our relationship with, healthy uh, um, tools as provided by a therapist, because I didn't know what to do at that point in time.
And either way, no matter what you do to him, it's the wrong. There's no
Yes,
right way. No matter what you
right,
do, it's just
right,
impossible.
right. He wanted to keep going. He wanted to fight. He wanted to control. And I think the reason, I don't think he wanted to fight. I think he wanted to beat me down into a place of submission, a place of isolation, a place of dependence, but ultimately submitting, which is what I would have expected he probably saw growing up. Not necessarily from a physical perspective, but definitely from an emotional one, it seemed like. Otherwise, I don't know where he would have gotten that idea from, because definitely, like, like I'm I'm not the submitting molded person. Like I wasn't 18, like I was 31 years old. Like I was a wholly formed person.
Mm.
Rewiring someone at that point in time is very difficult. Also, I knew I didn't need rewiring, but um, yeah, maybe he should date someone younger and mold them. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, there's no real. Yeah, I don't know. It's just
I don't.
too crazy. But yeah, so that's
Don't have
just
any good advice.
insane.
Get out, get help, seek advice from your family, stay grounded, stay like document things as you go along, so that if they try to gaslight you or tell you that this isn't how things went down, like your memory tricks yourself, right? Like you start
Mhm.
believing, the more time that passes, the less negative you remember things. But if you kept a diary and if you had documented it, you can revisit it. And even actually preparing for this phone call, like I was up on Friday night just trying to sift through again messages from him, and immediately I was put back in just like this terrible space. Like, but at least it let me remember like how terrible it was when I was there. So document things, keep friends close. But yeah, seek help if you need it, for sure. Seek help if you can't control the situation or if you
Yeah.
feel unsafe.
So perhaps have one or two key friends potentially,
Yeah.
something like that.
Who have your best interests in mind, for sure.
What do you think would be the main thing that kind of anchors that? Is it the one or two key friends that supports the most?
Yeah, I think having people who want the best for you, um, because I think a lot of people would, I don't want to say push their agenda, but and you know, maybe I wanted to be in that relationship. I didn't. I'm just saying maybe someone would want to be in that type of relationship. But if you have friends that know you and what you want, and therefore then can advise what's best for you, I think that that's probably very important versus just having friends that think they know what's best for you. I think there's a difference there.
Yeah, for sure. Alrighty, well, thanks for sharing your story. That's a lot to unpack, but I so some
What?
ups, some downs. At least we can kind of laugh about it, although I
Uh,
wasn't sure going into this. I did have an impression that you were very positive. So, and the fact that you wanted to share this is very
it's
impressive.
insane. It's insane. You have to laugh at it. Like even like I have my I had to pull this up as well, but I won't read it through. But like it's the reasons for the divorce. So he had to detail. So
Wait, what?
he could have just simply he could first of all he could have let me file for divorce in Ontario in February of 2020. He could let me do that, and it would have been a simple $600 fee to the Ontario government saying, hey, the marriage that happened in 2019 is no longer a thing. Like, we're done. Give me back my marriage, like, dissolve the license. It would have been $600. But because he is a controlling, manipulative person, he proceeded to initiate the divorce from the UK 2 months ahead of February, which then cost me almost £4,000 to deal with lawyers.
Oof.
And he could again, he's just, spiteful and wanted to take me for all I was worth, which was nothing. And he could have simply just said, like, divorcing for irrevocable differences. Like, you're able to say that. In fact, like, I don't even think you needed to write anything down legally. But it's laughable. Like, the reasons he cited for the relationship was that I was irresponsible with regards to my finances, even though I paid his rent at the apartment even before I moved to the UK, and continued to pay for 2 months after moving out of the apartment.
Mm-hmm.
He calls me, one of the reasons is he calls me rude and disrespectful. That's a point of work. That's a reason.
Okay.
The respondent was rude to the petitioner throughout the course of the marriage. That's literally a point of why he's divorcing me. He also says that my mother repeatedly is another reason that I'm being divorced. The respondent's mother repeatedly informed both the petitioner and his family, so my husband and his family, of her desire for them to subsequently move back to Canada at some point in time. What mother wouldn't say to her daughter and her new husband, Michelle, I'm glad you moved to the UK, but like, I'd really like you guys to be back here for when you have children. Like, that's a pretty normal statement, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not a reason for divorce. I don't know. Yeah, it's just laughable. Like, the number one reason for the divorce is his grandfather passed away. I had a trip planned to Paris to see my friend the weekend that the funeral was on. Mm-hmm. And so obviously the funeral gets planned, and I'm like, oh shit, like, I'm supposed to be going to Paris. I didn't go to Paris. I canceled the trip. I went to the funeral, but that is the number one reason for my divorce.
What?
Apparently.
Okay. That makes absolutely no fucking sense.
The petitioner's granddad passed away, and the respondent did not provide support throughout this difficult time when he needed her to. Instead, the respondent decided to maintain plans to take this trip to Paris instead of willingly attend the funeral. The respondent did later attend through travel cancellation plans, however, had provided poor support in that time of need.
Oh, fuck, seriously.
I had a trip planned. Your grandfather passed away. My plans got canceled and I came to the funeral. That's what happened. That is the number one reason for my divorce.
He's just not happy with the timeline he had in mind. It was like, oh, right, I'll cancel it right now, 5 seconds ago.
Like it is you say it's laughable, and like it is laughable. It is laughable. So yeah, you have to laugh about it.
Like what he wants is that you predict the day his grandfather dies and you already cancel the trip before he dies, 5 seconds before he dies, that kind of thing. That's just, yeah, I got no words for that kind of thing.
No words. And even like when we were going to the lawyers, he had put, so obviously he had paid for he'd paid for the sponsorship, and he wrote in an official document that was given to my lawyer through his lawyer that if I paid him back, that he would redact
if you gave him
or
if you gave him
that he made
if you gave him back his bag of toothpaste.
Right? Like my lawyer comes to me and he says, so Michelle, just so you know, this is legal blackmail, but I have to tell you because it's come from his lawyer. But if you pay him, he'll take this line out of your statement for why he's divorcing you. And I was like, fuck no, like leave all those ridiculous statements in his reasoning for divorcing you. Like, I don't give a shit. And also, you're right, it's legal blackmail. Like, why are you trying to legally blackmail me in writing?
That's
crazy. I don't know. Yeah, like rule of thumb: if you're dating somebody and they have a bag of toothpaste and they refuse to let it go, just go. Just call it, cut your losses, and say, "I'm good."
Just fucking leave. Just throw up in that bag immediately and say, "That's all I need to know."
Or steal the bag and leave. I feel like taking the bag with you would be a good one too.
Take it to a lab and run some tests on it. Get to the bottom of what's going on. Like,
yeah.
Back to like why I'm here. He approached me in the London Underground in the fucking subway. How many stations are there? Like at least 200. And I'm lowballing. I'm pretty sure there are so many underground stations, so many tunnels. It's one of the biggest networks of a subway on Earth. And
I think Waterloo has like 24 tracks that go into, like, Waterloo particularly is the busiest of them in London.
Yeah, it has the Northern Line, Jubilee Line, also has Waterloo and City Line, but I'm not even sure that's a real thing. I can't remember what else it has. I think it's just those three.
The Southern trains.
Huh?
I think all the Southern trains go up through there too, do they not?
Northern Line, Northern Line, yeah. Yeah, but I still have no explanation for it's such a huge mystery to me. But now at least I have a little bit of closure knowing that because he told me, and when he came up to me, I still have no idea how he spotted me specifically out of how many people were there, and whether that was something he had already planned to do. Was he following me, or was it such a huge coincidence? Whatever it is, thanks, because we have this video now, and maybe this could be some kind of supportive message to people, someone watching, or at least a little bit of light entertainment for any assholes. Just kidding.
No, I'm good with it. It's quite a tale, and yeah, it's funny. So I don't mind. That's fine.
despite the misfortune. But yeah, anyway,
Uh,
he said to, I can't remember much about what it was. It was just so weird to me. But one of the things I specifically remember is that he said something like you're getting separated from each other, or he said at the time you're his wife. So it must have been before the divorce, obviously, but he said something like she's a psycho, blah blah blah. And I was like, and I don't remember what I said to him. I was just like, okay, whatever. But in my
yeah, yeah,
mind, clearly, no matter, like, I don't even have to remember what my thought was, but it definitely was something like, you're telling me that she's the psycho? You're fucking coming up to me in front of 100 people right here, going all around us. It was rush hour. It was
right.
rush hour. I was going to work. I forgot to say that. It was rush hour, just to fucking highlight how busy that was.
Yeah,
Like, you're
yeah.
telling me that she's the weird one in my mind, but this is happening right now. That
But
is
he
not
knew.
normal.
He knew I wasn't that girl. He knew that.
And I in
So
my
why?
messages, which I will show on the screen, I wasn't sure until today if that was him taking over your phone, or if I was actually talking to you. It was you the whole time, right?
It was me.
Yeah, I thought it was him taking over the phone or something. I was like, what the fuck
There.
is going on? Because it's not normal.
Yeah,
But I was
yeah.
prepared to, like, uh, if that was him, like, okay, I'll prove to you so that you can put your mind to rest, because I'm a problem
Yeah.
solver. I'm not going to say fuck you or anything like this. My priority was, like, despite me being so baffled, because the way I respond is like, oh, are you Korean? It's like, I know what happened. I have all the pictures to prove it. And perhaps I could have shown more, but I didn't want to give someone's identity away necessarily, or
Right.
maybe I didn't have a photo from that particular week until a week later when I was with that particular woman who wasn't you again.
Right.
That kind of thing. I was prepared to show this guy I will entertain, not entertain, but I will
Right.
prove to
Play
you
safe.
that you're wrong,
Yeah. Yes.
to put your
Yeah.
mind at rest, because obviously it's not ideal for anyone. I just want to solve the
Right.
problem. But the whole time I was talking to you, I just wanted to, I don't know,
And
just
you
it
even
was so
said,
weird.
you even said, like, have him reach out to me if he needs to, if he wants clarity. Like, if he doesn't believe you, like, have him reach out to me. Like, you said that. I don't know if he ever did. I guess he didn't, but I guess he did inadvertently when he came up to you.
He found me eventually. Yeah, I'm
He's
not
like,
sure
fuck yeah, I'll
what the
reach
time
out.
frame was, but it wasn't like 6 months later for sure, or anything like that. Not that I remember,
So wild.
but it's still like a
I don't
pretty
know.
fresh thing. No, all that just because I never even met you. This is the first time I actually hear your voice, first time you hear mine.
Yeah.
The only
Yeah.
interaction we ever had was he literally introduced us through his jealousy. That's like the opposite of what he wanted. And that's just how it is. So there you go. Irony. So yeah, insane. Just
Yeah.
because maybe it was that Facebook group and I was doing this barbecue and everyone was invited if they wanted to come along, bring some cheese. You're in charge of the cheese. I didn't even specifically talk to
Yeah.
you. I
No,
remember
no.
talking to like 10 other people, never anyone else.
I joined. No, I joined the group. I joined the group, and I joined the group probably at the beginning of March when I was again on my own in a new apartment, looking for friends who didn't think I was fucking crazy. And I ended up doing like one hike with a group of girls, and like that was great. So like I think those groups are super cool. Because yeah, being a Canadian in London and finding other Canadians is fun. So yeah, keep it up. But
Yeah.
yeah, he I wonder how many other people's profiles he went through to find something, but I don't know. So I don't
Yeah,
know.
too crazy. Well, let's not imagine that's just too complicated. But huge thanks for sharing your story.
Of course.
With positive, huge admiration for the positivity and some things I wanted to highlight, like I did before, about you being calm and communicating very well. So some nice lessons to pick up on the way, despite the terrible circumstances. But all the best to how everything is now. With, did you say you have a daughter?
Uh, I do. She's got 4 legs and floppy ears. She's a dog.
Oh damn, I'd be tricked. Okay, they're pretty cool. But Deck's coming
Yeah.
along, and all the things are um much better than before.
Yeah. No, things are good here. So we're doing okay.
There we go. Nice. Well, thanks for coming, and I'll have to come up with a thumbnail so maybe we could take his face and, like, I don't know. I'll have to deal with that separately. All right. Thanks
No,
guys
I
for
think the
watching.
thumbnail should be that picture, the picture
Huh?
of her. But yeah, go for
Oh,
it.
we're using it. All right.